Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Football Martin channel. We're covering everything Southampton related. There's so much happening right now. It's a fast pace that news is breaking around our football club, and I'm trying to do my best to keep up with it. It's been relentless the last couple of days. I've had little sleep. I spent my whole time researching and my whole time speaking with different people. I wanted to bring fans to the channel. I wanted to bring both Charlie and Ellie here this evening to join me on the channel to talk all things Southampton. Where do we go next? Is Frank Lampard really an option for Saints? Can they pursue him to come to Southampton? And we will talk all things Aurelio Romeo as well. There's a lot of talk around Russell Martin. There is so much to cover, and you guys can get involved in the conversation below. Give us your thoughts. Get involved in the conversation as it unravels if you're watching live. If you're watching in catch up, make sure you get involved and comment. And before I go any further, please do subscribe to the channel, because the amount of views I'm getting compared to the amount of subscribers is quite unbelievable. Like 116,000 people have watched the channel in the last 20 days. Please do subscribe to the channel. It would make a massive difference. Charlie, Ellie, welcome along to the channel. I'll start with you, Ellie. Ladies first. How do you feel about the sacking of Will Steele?
I can't believe it, to be honest. I think, it felt like it was going to happen after that game on Saturday. And I don't know why, because to me, it didn't feel like there was a lot directed at him. I think all the chants from inside the ground that I heard was directed at the owners. But to me, it just felt like that was probably the end, as much as I didn't want it to be. And I think lots of Saints fans didn't want it to be. I've only seen, positive comments about Will Steele and wishing him the best for the future. It didn't feel like this was a manager that everyone wanted to go. But I can't believe, he's had so little time, to be honest. I think it's 13 games, if I'm right. It doesn't feel long enough. And I also think how long is this going to go on? We've had so many managers now. We've had, I think, the same amount of league wins as we've had managers. I think 4 managers and 4 wins. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, yeah, pretty shocked, to be honest. And it's difficult to say, but I felt like it was coming, but also, pretty disappointed, because I felt like, if he'd have had a bit of time, he might have gone on to do some good things.
Ellie, you stand down in the northern at St Mary's. I'm at the other end of the stadium, so just give me an idea of what it was like inside the northern on the weekend. Obviously, I could hear it.
Yeah, I think obviously as soon as we conceded that first goal, obviously that's when it felt like it really started to turn. I think, I had said to my friend that came with me this weekend before the game, I'd said, if we concede one here, this feels like the game where it's really going to turn. But also, to me, it felt like the game where we might have kickstarted our season, if we'd have gone on to win that. So it was pretty toxic, I think, after we conceded that first goal. And then obviously, at the end, as Will Steele came round with the players, I think, the only player that was really clapped was Leo. And it was not very nice towards the rest of the team and towards the manager.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't very nice. It was a horrible atmosphere at the end. Charlie, you were away. You were out of the country at the weekend. Some of your reaction, mate, to the departure of Will Steele.
Well, I mean, we had a exchange, didn't we, yesterday evening, and I was really annoyed, to be honest. And I don't think it's as much to do with Will Steele than it is just the club. Because I'm a really optimistic guy, but I find the fact that we've let another manager go a little bit embarrassing. I think it feels, we've obviously got relatives and friends who are fans of other clubs and always sort of send you the message saying, oh, what's happening at Southampton? And you sort of get a bit tired of talking about it because we've sacked another manager. So I think it feels, maybe it's just how I feel, but it feels like it was just a bit of a laughing stock. You know how Watford change managers like 3 times a year, even if they're doing really well? It's never good enough, is it? Well, it feels like we're getting a bit like that. And I thought there was something in the club statement that really sort of got under my skin, which was Johannes Spor saying ultimately the process has taken longer than we expected. And I honestly don't know what they did expect. We've just come off the back of the worst season in our history, very nearly the worst season in Premier League history. And we said, I mean, we talked last, maybe last spring, probably just after relegation had been confirmed, or whenever, once it was, just about the maths, and said, we were in a worse position at the end of last season getting relegated than we were when we got relegated 2 years before. The squad was, less accomplished, less experienced. We'd lost. We knew we had people like Kyle Walker-Peters leaving, and we were in a worse position than the previous relegation. The squad needed a lot more work. It was going to be a busy summer, and I think so it's proven. I don't think bringing in a manager as young and full of sort of life and hope as Will Still, and then sacking him after 13 games makes any sense whatsoever. I did like what Jim Radcliffe said a few weeks ago about Amorim, when he was under so much pressure to sack him. He just said, Ruben's going to be a really good coach at Man United in 3 years' time. And he sort of said, we know it's going to take a while. We know it's going to take transfer windows. I actually thought we had a decent, it felt at the time, at the end of when the transfer window closed, that it had been a decent transfer window. And, we have got some good players in. There's some good guys in there. Some haven't sort of really kicked on yet or got started. I know there are some, some that, so we have that really serious doubts about, but there's some good players we signed. So I think it's just not the sort of thing, relegation like last season is not the sort of problem that gets solved in one transfer window. It's just not. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm really surprised. Ellie did call it. She rung me on the way home from the game on Saturday and told me how awful it had been and how toxic it was. And to me, it feels like Sports Republic has got a load of jip at the game, and this is a reaction to shift the blame onto a manager who was just, I know it was a difficult set of results. They have only won 2 games. It's not great. It is sort of sacking form, but I really hope the club was better than this.
I watched back today the fans forum from the summer, hosted by Adam Blackmore, BBC Radio Solent. And I'm going to do a video on it tomorrow. I'm going to clip up some of the bits and use it as a bit of an example, because there's some really important takeaways from it. And one of the big things that stood out for me was how they want to back a manager through thick and thin. When the going got really tough, Ellie, they wanted to stick with the manager and ride it out. But they did go for such an inexperienced manager, somebody that was done very well to get to where he got to, but he did feel like it was a gamble from them. And Adam Blackmore said it at the time in commentary and across his platforms, and he was very right, wasn't he? It was a huge gamble to take such a young man. But if you're going to take that gamble, do you not just try and make it work? Do you think he was given enough time?
No, I mean, it's what do you expect really when you've had a season like we had last season? We've had players in and out of the door. We've lost players like, I know it was always going to happen, but Aaron Ramsdale's gone. Jan Bednarak, who had been here for years, is gone. Kyle Walker-Peters is gone. We've lost senior players. We've bought in players, like Damien Downs, who's doesn't seem to be ready for this league. I know that we've brought in players like Tom Fellows and Finn Azaz, who I think will be really good, but they need time to get going, and a lot of this business happened right at the end of the window. And I completely agree. I'd love for us to be in a situation where we get a manager, we stick with them, and we have them for a really, really long time. That's what I want.
Serenity.
How long can we go on like this for, of just going through these managers? It's just unbelievable to me, to be honest.
A lot of people say in the chat, Ellie, about he didn't command respect. He didn't have the respect of the players. Well, when the club recruited him, whoever recruited him inside the football club, and decided, okay, this is our man, did they not do their research on him correctly?
You would have liked to think that they would have done, wouldn't you? I hope they did, but also, as we said, he's a young manager, with that bit of inexperience. So maybe the senior players, that we do have, didn't, feel that way about him, you know, that they did have that respect for him. And, you know, they got players in this squad that, you know, have played a lot of football games. Jack Stevens, for example, you know, he's played in the Championship before. He's played in the Premier League. He's been at Saints a long time. And, you know, maybe a manager coming in, you know, like Will Still, you know, wasn't the best option at the time. I mean, I was really excited about Will Still, and that seemed to be the general feeling around, you know, when it happened. So, you know, the fact that it hasn't worked out is, pretty gutting.
Yeah, and you made some great points, Ellie. I joined Hawksby and Jacobs on TalkSport today. Really enjoyed their show. Big fan of it. And I went on their show, and I was talking. You just mentioned about the egos within the dressing room, that those senior players. And I mentioned that. I said that he was dealing with some big egos, and they laughed at me when I said about the egos. It goes, "Oh, well, after the season you had last year, you've got egos." I said, "You wouldn't believe it, would you? But we do. We do. They are." And you're correct in what you've just said. You're absolutely spot on in what you say. The next manager that comes in, we obviously we're debating, should he, shouldn't he? Was he the right man? Not the right man? As we move on from this and the fallout, Ellie, where do they turn now?
Oh, I don't know. It's a tough question. I mean, obviously, you know, we've seen all the reports, haven't we, about Russell Martin? Is it going to be Russell Martin?
How do you feel? How do you feel about him? Would you take it?
So for me, I mean, I know there's a lot of Saints fans out there that, you know, don't like Russell Martin anymore and things like that. And I know it went wrong last season with Russell Martin. I'm not saying that. But for me, what I remember about Russell Martin is that season that we had under him, that 25-game unbeaten run, that night against West Brom at home where we got sent to Wembley, the playoff final. I remember all those good things. You know, as I said, I know it went wrong with Russell Martin. My concern about bringing Russell Martin back, and I know there's, you know, players in the squad that, you know, have played for Russell Martin for a while and would probably like him to come back. Ryan Manning, Flynn Downs, players like that. My concern would be, you know, we say we appointed Russell Martin, we went on a run and we end up going, you know, getting promoted, because that could still happen. I mean, it's not looking likely, is it? But that, in a, you know, theoretically that could happen. We get promoted with Russell Martin as our manager, then what? We're in the same situation again, you know, with Russell Martin as our manager going into the Premier League. And I'd love, you know, if that is what's going to happen, I'd love, you know, to know from the club how that's going to be any different, because it just feels like we could go back into this situation again. So for me, it doesn't feel like Russell Martin is the right man to come back. But I don't know. What do you think, Dad?
Well, I would say, I was remembering Martin when we spoke on the night he got sacked after that awful Spurs. And the reports as they came out in the subsequent days were that Russell Martin was asked either at half-time or full-time by the senior guys at the club, will you change your style? And he said no. And that's what, you know, did for him. So if we were going to appoint him again, my question would be, has his answer to that question changed? Because surely Saints can't sack him because he said, I won't change my style, and then reappoint him if he still won't change his style. It's just failed miserably at Rangers. And, you know, that was going to be a tough gig, you know, from the start.
Yeah.
So, you know,
it was a really tough gig.
Especially with his style of play and implementing it and everything is a big stretch for any group of players that haven't played it before. It's you know, but yeah, I would say, as his answer to that question changed, and knowing what I know about him and the interviews and his determination and his doggedness about that, I would say, how can it have changed? If he's such a disciple of that style of play, then how can it have changed? So he might come in and steady the ship defensively. I think that would be almost certainly what would happen, although we did have some big defeats under him. But I'm not sure in the long term it's a good idea. And Daniel Farke's obviously been at Leeds, gone up, gone down, gone up, you know, and is doing okay this season. So maybe things can improve. Who knows? But it doesn't feel like going back is the right thing to do to me.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. No, I don't think it happened. I did a video about it this morning. I did cover it this morning because he's still the favourite. I'm surprised he's still the favourite after hearing what I've heard today from people around that I know. I don't feel like it is likely to happen. It has been spoke about, and it's the thumbnail of this video this evening, Ellie, is that Frank Lampard is highly admired by this football club. They really like Frank Lampard. I think we all do as fans. But wasn't he the man to probably go after back in May, June time when the season ended and they just missed out on the playoffs? Was that not the time to try and tempt him to become the Saints manager? Because surely now to get Frank in is going to be really hard.
Yeah, completely. I mean, to me, if it was up to me, knowing what I know, that it feels like a good option. I don't think it will happen because, at this point, why would he leave and why would he come to Saints? But the point's interesting because I remember me and my dad having a conversation after Russell Martin had been sacked, and you know what I'm going to say, but you said, I think Frank Lampard would be a fantastic option. And at the time, I just did not agree with you. I just thought, surely that's, not it. There's got to be options that are better out there. But now, however long later, it feels like that could be a fantastic option. So, yeah, I didn't think it last time, but now I think I do. And Dad, I apologise because you called that from the beginning.
It's getting them out of Coventry would be the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah.
With them being where they are.
How's that even going to be possible if they're top of the league and doing well? And I know that I think they lost last night, didn't they? Or they lost the weekend.
Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night. But he's had such a good start, and he had a great season with Derby, of course, when he was manager of them. Got to the playoff final, and just lost out. I think that was Villa. They lost to that year, and he hasn't had a lot of success in the Premier League, obviously. But I think what we do see when he was at Derby, he had Mason Mount, didn't he? And he had a couple of other players who went on to be really successful in the Premier League, and I think he'd be good with the younger players in our team, and maybe even get a tune out of someone like Damien Downs. So let alone everyone else. There's lots of good young players in our squad, isn't there? So he'd probably be. I think he would still be a good option. I just don't think he's an option for us now. I just don't think we'd have the choice in the matter.
I agree. Whoever comes in, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm very much of like we'll talk about Ori Romeo very shortly, but in terms of the manager coming in, like I feel it has to be someone that commands respect instantly. You can't be no hipster appointments, no like under 21 promoted becomes a manager for the season, because I think they're playing with fire now. We're in a really crucial moment. People think we couldn't go down, and a lot of people say to me, "We won't go down, Martin," but if we went and repeated the 13 games we've just done again and not take our chances for another 13 games, we're in big trouble. Yeah. The next manager, Eddie, has to have some real charisma about him, but some real leadership qualities.
Oh, absolutely. We've got to get this right, because I think we've had, we had Juric, didn't we, which wasn't the right appointment. Then I know that we had Simon Rusk for a little bit, but he had just sort of stepped up while we were getting Will Still. But that's been 2 appointments now that haven't gone the way, the clubs obviously wanted them to go. And this is crucial, absolutely crucial. And I think I was actually listening to Adam and Joe earlier, and they've said it for a few weeks now. But yeah, it's so good. And they Joe was saying, the expectation that we set ourselves for this season, that came from the club, it felt like, and I thought it as well. And maybe that's just because I'm an optimist Saints fan, but the expectation felt like it was going to be, we're going to come first or second, we were going to go straight back up, and everyone would be happy. And I think the way that last season went, and the players that we've had to bring in, the players that we've had to let go, that was never going to happen. And I think this disappointment and the sacking of Will Still, and when it's not been that far into the season, I think this has all come from a high expectation that we've had, to then be more disappointed. And I think maybe we should have just been, rather than thinking we were going to go straight back up. And I'm sure there's Saints fans there that knew we weren't probably going to go straight back up. But I think that was probably the expectation that we needed to have of we need a season or 2 seasons in the Championship now to rebuild ourselves, and then go again and become that established Premier League team again, in 2 or 3 years' time, because because, you know, the whole thing, you know, needs a reset, it feels like to me. You know, we're not going to go up and have any different results than we had last season at this stage. So something has to change, and this appointment has to be the absolute right one. That's for sure.
Yeah, your daughter speaks a lot of sense, Charlie. A lot of sense for a young lady. She's absolutely superb. Pleasure to have you both on this channel this evening. Thank you for everybody that's tuning in. We've got 250 people tuning in live watching this evening. So thank you to every single one of you that is here watching. Make sure you get involved in the comments box below. Anything you want to bring to the table, please do get involved and give us your opinions. And he made some great points, Charlie, about where we go next and rebuilding, and it does feel like there's a rebuild that's maybe started, but you were speaking a short while ago about needing transfer windows to kind of get it right and bringing the players in that you need and getting the players out that you also need, because there's a lot of players that you need to get out the door. I don't think they were able to get out enough in the summer, and somebody said, no, Martin, you're wrong. But no doubt about it, he was constantly having to leave players out because the squad's just too big. It's so imbalanced. I've never known a squad at Southampton be so imbalanced.
But also, you know, the team's changed. He did have a run of several games when the team was pretty much the same, didn't he? But the team changes about quite a lot, and I quite like that in a way, but also think you need stability in the team to have some success. So, yeah, we just haven't got that. We haven't got that. We've got exciting forward players, but we haven't got the finishers or the power in the front at the front of the team, have we? To just really just take games by the scruff of the neck and just finish them off. That has been a problem all season. Even though we talked endlessly about Adam Armstrong playing in the right position and everything and how effective he can be, we know that. But you know, Cameron Archer's never quite taken off in a Saints shirt, has he? He has played a lot better, I think, this season. You know, but he's still not scored many goals. He's had a a difficult time, and we know that Damien Downs hasn't got going yet. So there is still at least one or two other transfer windows, I think, before, you know. Imagine if someone came in now and we did get promoted at the end of the season. This squad would not be ready. We'd be in a worse position than we were at the start of last season with Russell Martin. You know, so I would. It's not that I don't want to go up. I do want Saints to get promoted this season. You know, that's the result. What's the point being in the Championship if you don't want to win it or you know, be successful? But I think we're in a very difficult period, and it's definitely a rebuilding period. It feels like I just felt like Will Still was past that. You know, it's just like signing all these players. You sign the manager as well, and you keep him, and it keeps going, and you just have some faith. I think that, you know, Sport Republic got a load of grief at the weekend, and I do think they've got a lot to answer for here. I think we do have to be careful as fans about what we wish for. You know, we've all seen Coventry are one of them, aren't they? Who were really happy when they got taken over sort of 15, 20 years ago by that sort of investment fund, and ended up being disastrous, losing the stadium and all of that stuff. It was a disaster, wasn't it? We have to be careful what we wish for. You know, Sport Republic get out of our club feels like it's a really obvious thing to be chanting at the moment. You know, everyone's really disgruntled and upset and disappointed, and you know, in some respects they've not covered themselves in glory at all. But there's wider problems in the whole building, isn't there? In the whole building, and one thing I did sort of think about when Nicola Cortese came in and Marcus Lieber came in. I know we got promoted with Nigel Adkins, who was our manager in League One, and that obviously ended in the sort of January of the first Premier League season with them getting sacked. From that point onwards, Nicola Cortese only appointed managers with experience in one of the top 5 European leagues. So he appointed people. Every single manager who came in after Nigel Adkins had experience in one of the top 5 European leagues, until Sport Republic took over and appointed Nathan Jones. So that was the first appointment in probably a decade where the manager came into a Premier League club with no top level experience. And I think that was their first mistake, and they just haven't got it right since. So there's a string of appointments, and I would say Russell Martin was a success until we got into the Premier League, and obviously we know what happened. But I think there was a lot to answer for Sport Republic in that all going wrong as well. There's a very appealing Athletic article, wasn't there? I think it was the Athletic, where they talked about how people in the club, at the top of the club, felt from the very start of last season that we were going to get relegated. That this transfer window just hadn't gone well enough, and the squad wasn't good enough, and it was just false optimism that we all had, and it was always going to turn out badly. I think that, I suppose what I'm saying in the end, what I'm getting to is, you need a set of principles and a set of basic standards, don't you, to work to a strategy, which is not just how we're going to play football, but who our managers are going to be, and what's the minimum standard Southampton is willing to accept for its managers. And if Nicola Cortese and that ownership can say, we're only going to appoint people with top 5 European League experience, what's our standard today? Because we've gone all over the place. There has been no standard for the managers we've appointed. And that's why I think Frank Lampard makes a difference, because if you were to get someone like Frank Lampard, he has managed in the Championship, he has managed in the Premier League. Okay, he's not been as successful. But Daniel Farke hadn't been successful in the Premier League until this season, when he started okay. So, I think that's why that was my logic in the summer. When I was staying to for Frank Lampard, and I think there'll be managers like that. I mean, I think someone that I would name, and I don't think it'll be a particularly popular suggestion, but I remember the Athletic doing an article about sometime last season, early on, for every Premier League club, who would their ideal manager be for the squad, the style of play, and everything else. And the name that came forward for Saints was Gary O'Neill. And he's available. He's managed in both
Someone's
divisions.
just popped this in the chat as well, Charlie, as you say that.
Right. Okay. So
he's ruling out himself out of the Wolves job. I don't know if that's official, but this just popped in.
Well, I believe he lives in the area as well. Now, you look at his record and you sort of think, well, he doesn't seem very exciting as an appointment. But that, sometimes it's those guys. Nigel Adkins didn't seem that exciting as an appointment, did he? Ralph Hassan didn't seem that exciting as an appointment. Mauricio Pochettino didn't seem that exciting as an appointment. But so I think we shouldn't judge. We should. What I worry about is do Sports Republic have the people, the professionals in their ranks to make these decisions and set these standards? What is the minimum standard? And that's the question I am asking myself about Sports Republic. Not get out of our club, but do you have the skills and the experience across a number of people, not just Spurs, but a number of people supporting him, to make these decisions and set these standards? Because that's where I think we've been going wrong.
No, I think you're spot on. I think he makes some great points. Ellie, does your dad there, makes some absolutely great points. Somebody made a comment in the chat a minute ago saying, I can't believe that Saints fans are that arrogant to think that we could go and get Frank Lampard. I don't think any Saints fans think we can. Certainly we're 100% not arrogant about it. I don't think one of us here on the panel tonight said, oh, we will get Frank Lampard. I don't think for a minute it will be very easy. A lot of talk around Brendan Rodgers, Ellie. His name has come up quite a bit over the last couple of hours. His name's popped up more than pretty much any other name in the chat other than Russell Martin. Is Brendan Rodgers a realistic target, do you think, for Saints?
Do you know what? I don't know what I think about that one. I really don't, just to be completely honest. I think it could work. Is it realistic? Maybe, maybe not. It's an interesting one, and it's one I hadn't seen much on, to be honest, until you'd said that. I think the ones that I'd, the big ones that I'd seen was Russell Martin, obviously. Frank Lampard. I'd seen Gary O'Neill a couple of times. I hadn't seen much about Brendan Rodgers, so that's a sort of a new one. But yeah, I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah, lady just said there, Ellie, about the club losing its family feel. You were there Saturday in the stands. I was there. We both saw Nathan Wood walk off down the tunnel. I covered it on the channel. He's come out and apologised now, but it did massively boil over. We talk about a family football club. and we had people throwing abuse left, right, and centre, and we had the point where one of our players has decided to bite back, probably in a moment of pure rage, but has to control himself, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually said to Ed on the way out of the ground, I said, you know, that it feels like there's this disconnect between the fans and what was going on the pitch, and that's the first time I'd felt like that in a little while. But that was a comment that I'd said, because, you know, it just, I mean, the vibe around the stadium, it was all wrong. You know, there was, and you know, I think obviously Nathan Wood's done what he's done there in a moment of anger, which, you know, he shouldn't have done. But, you know, I'm sure, you know, I don't know what was said to him. And yeah, it's obviously not something that he should have done. But the players are obviously, you know, feeling frustrated with this whole thing as well. And maybe that's part of the reason why Will still has gone, is, you know, because the players weren't, you know, are starting to lose faith in it, as we said. So yeah, he definitely, you know, shouldn't have done what he did. But yeah, I mean, at least he's come out and apologised. And
yeah.
That's actually
it was important too. Yeah.
Yeah, he did make a mistake, but these are young men. Most of these are young men, you know, and they're not infallible. You know, they might earn a lot of money and they might be in responsible positions and they might be role models and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, they're still just young men who feel the pressure, and they will be feeling the pressure at the moment. I guarantee that. You know, they'll be losing sleep, and maybe some people don't care because they earn lots of money, and so doesn't matter. But I think it doesn't change the fact that they're young men and they're going to make mistakes sometimes. Look at Jack Stevens, experienced player last season, pulling Cucurella's hair. You know, that was something that he shouldn't have done. He's an experienced player and he did something like that. So I think in this situation, I think we should probably expect the players to respond, you know, to be struggling to keep a lid on their emotions. And a really good manager will be someone, like you said, an experienced person who can have their respect, will channel that hurt and that pain and that you know, the criticism they're getting for the crowd, and they can feel it all through the game. I'm sure they can feel what's going on. An experienced manager will channel all that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you will, and I think, and like Ellie said a little while ago in the show, that the minute that first goal went in at the weekend, and then the tension started to build. There was like hisses, and just the players melted under it, didn't they, Ellie? They were just collapsed under the pressure. It just felt like it just drained out of them instantly.
Yeah, and they could obviously feel, you know, everything on the pitch, and you know, maybe that didn't, you know, help. You know, I'm sure it didn't help with the performance, but you know, people are angry, people are annoyed, people are paying money to go, you know, and watch this, or you know, every week. You know, we're still, you know, sort of selling out, you know, away ends. We're still, you know, people are putting a lot of time and effort into this, and you know, they want to see results, don't they? We all want to see results. And so I think, you know, I don't like when there's a lot of negativity around the ground, because, you know, it's something I've never liked. I mean, I've never sung any of those songs, you know, like literally never. But, you know, I can kind of understand it. And that's something that, you know, Adam and Joe were saying as well the other day. You know, fans have the right to be annoyed and upset about what's happening at the minute.
I do think it makes it, as you say, Lee, like, people have the right to express their emotions, and it is a very emotional business being a football fan. You know, it is. You know, I get annoyed and angry sometimes when I'm in the crowd. You know, you react to things that happen, but you know, I think bringing the negativity, singing those songs, and all that stuff during the game does make it, to my mind, makes it more likely that a 1-0 deficit in the first half is going to turn into a 2-0 deficit at the end of the game. Just makes it more likely, because the players do need to feel the support and positivity from the crowd. It's just difficult. You know, everyone in the crowd has paid money to be there. They're emotional. They're supporting the team they love. They want to see them do well, and you're going to have an emotional reaction. So I don't know where the balance can be found, but I don't think this group of players, there's a lot of inexperience there. I don't think in the end they're going to play any better because that's going on. It's not going to make things better.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think we're all in agreement is whatever happens, whoever comes in and we get the right man in, that it needs to be a clean slate and it needs to be is to look at the positives, that there are some really good players, and if the manager can come in and get a tune out of them, I was listening to David Pratt a minute ago on BBC Solent, and he was saying if you could bring in a manager and somebody to put the ball in the back of the net, you'd be absolutely fine. You just need to find somebody to take your chances, and he said it will come together quite quickly, and that will get the fans back on side really quickly. Talking about players, we need to come on to it. Big announcement today, Ellie. Really big announcement. Well, it's not announced; it's just leaked. All these stories, I notice now that the club are never first anymore. They're never first, are they? It always comes out via other little outlets and like snippets through little accounts on X. I hate X, but that's where you find things out. Oriol Romeo looks like he's coming back. Well, he is coming back. He's been in Southampton today. He's having a medical ahead of he's going to be here for a season. He's not going to be here for any more than a season by the looks of it. How do you feel about Oriol Romeo returning, the king, as I call him?
I know. I mean, stuff like this that you want to happen, I never like to believe it until it's official, because I don't want to get my hopes up and then it not happen. But to me, I mean, that's fantastic. I think he's been, in and around the club, hasn't he? I think it was the pictures of him with the team at pre-season. Was that the pre-season just gone, or maybe just before that? I don't know, but yeah, I mean that feels like the type of player that we need. That's a player with experience, across a variety of levels, who was at this football club for a while. He knows it, and the fans will love him straight away. I mean, that to me feels a fantastic signing. I mean, even if we only have him until the end of the season, like what the reports are saying, yeah, that's so exciting to me.
Yeah, I've been calling for this for like all summer. Controversial Chris, I said the same to him. I knew he was without a club. I knew his contract was terminated with Barcelona. I'm under the understanding that they've been trying to do this for quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
I just wish, Ellie, that it had been done in the summer, because I think we would have got a few results in. I think there'd be more points on the board with Oriol Romeo in the side, not only as a leader, but a man that sets standards in the dressing room. And I think he would have complemented Will Steele perfectly if they'd had him in earlier.
Yeah. And I mean, that would bring, a bit of experience back into the side, wouldn't it? Even, I think, last season when we had Adam Lallana, I know he didn't play a lot and things like that, but that was a player that could come on, if you're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go and, just sort of calm things, and we've got some experience in this squad, haven't we? We've got Jack Stevens, but he's not playing regularly. He's not playing every week, is he? I mean, who do we really have in the typical starting 11? That's a difficult question because it is changing so frequently.
Yeah.
11. But I do feel like we need that bit of stability, and I think there needs to be a pretty stable 11 to make these results start to happen. But I also understand that there's a lot of players in this team that should be good enough, and at their best, there's a lot of them that you wouldn't want to leave out in reality. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that would definitely be a positive signing. I mean, it brings, as you said, experience to the dressing room. Even if he doesn't start every game, just having him in and around the club, I think will be fantastic for some of the younger players that we've got.
I think as well, let's not forget, he came through Barcelona's academy. He's just left Barcelona. I don't think if we were in the Premier League, he'd be, I thought when he was sort of in his last days at the club, I thought, if he's going to leave, then, okay, maybe he's past his best in the Premier League. But in the Championship, I think this is just an inspired signing. He's got gravitas. Like I say, he's been in Barcelona's academy, and he's been playing for them. He played a lot of the games at the first half of last season. He started a lot of the games. So he's done really well. He's got a lot of experience. He's played with a lot of really good players. We know he's hard. He'll put himself about, and he'll be a great role model for people like Shea Charles. He's come back a little bit tougher this year, but still a bit. I'd still like him to be a bit tougher, and maybe Ori will be a great role model for players like Shea.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I'm really excited to see him back in the Saints shirt. Like you say, Ellie, we're just waiting for that official announcement, and then we can get really excited about it. But
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant move. Excited to see him. I just think probably just getting him up to match fitness may take a little bit, mind it, because he's not played sort of like the first sort of month and a bit of a season. So there's talk that he could even make the squad potentially on Wednesday. Do you see that really?
Well, that doesn't quite feel like it's going to happen for Wednesday. I don't feel like. I mean, maybe it will, but I mean, if he could be in the squad on Saturday, that would just be
give
be
everyone a
amazing.
lift, wouldn't it? Yeah, give everyone
what a
lift.
reception he'll get, I think, from the whole ground. I mean, it's just come out today, hasn't it? I mean, I hadn't seen tons or anything about this happening before, so it's quite a nice surprise. But I mean, what a player when he played for us before, and I think we all loved him, didn't we? So yeah, it was so exciting.
Yeah, I think he'll be good.
A good bet for first booking of a game as well. Every game.
Yeah, it's very true. If you got him and Flynn Downs in midfield, you know that one of them will definitely pick up a card.
Yeah.
It's absolutely guaranteed. And I think it's a good bit of business. Like I say, I just wish it happened a little bit earlier. We're looking ahead now. I've got pre-match preview coming out tomorrow of the game against Queen's Park Rangers. Ellie, they were heavily beaten on Saturday by a fellow relegated team, Ipswich Town. I've sat down with a podcaster today and he said to me they were absolutely abysmal. Their manager chops and changes their side a lot. They're really poor at home. They don't win a lot of games at home. We really need to go there and get something to it. 3 points for me. It's an absolute. You're going to have to go there and get a result.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll have, a permanent manager by that point. I feel like probably not. But I mean, it's certainly when they've just come off the back of that, was it 4-1 or was it 5-1? I can't remember.
I think it was 4-1.
Yeah, by Ipswich. I mean, now's the time to go ahead and get a result out of them, isn't it? I think, really give us that lift into that home game, which is, of course, we it's a must win, for that home game on Saturday. But I think 3 points would just, give the players a little bit of confidence again and go into that game on Saturday and hopefully take all 3 points. But I mean, yeah, now's the time to get 3 points out of them when they've just had that heavy loss, isn't it?
Yeah. 2 big games, Charlie, isn't it? We talk about the weekend as well, but QPR Wednesday night, Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. If we could go and get 6 points, things could feel very different come next Monday.
Yeah, but imagine if we get none. I mean, that'd be a disaster, won't it? Yeah, you're absolutely right. It would be amazing to get 6 points, and maybe the change of manager, whatever we say about Will Still, maybe the change of manager is enough to just get the tune out of the players and turn those draws and into wins. Remember that incredibly exciting first game of the season against Wrexham? How exciting that was at the end. They've got it in them. Let's hope that they can just unleash that little bit of extra sort of creativity, bit of luck, get the ball in the net rather than hitting the bar, that type of stuff. That's happened a fair bit over the last few weeks, hasn't it, as well? Let's not forget that. The defeats do mask some good stats and things like that. So, but yeah, obviously you've got a Sheffield Wednesday on minus 5 points at the moment. You've got to surely get at least 3 or 4 points out of these. Well, at least 4 points, haven't we, out of these 2 games at least? So that's a sort of minimum standard that this club should be expecting, whoever the manager is.
Good point, actually. I'm just going to pop on the screen, Ellie. Josh Kemp, he's a great guy, actually. Even if we win these 2 games, interim manager shouldn't be appointed like we did with Sellers. I absolutely back that up. He's inexperienced. So I think we're all in agreement with that. Absolutely cannot happen, can it?
Let's not fall into that trap. Even if he's like a highly respected young coach, let's not fall into that trap again. Really, honestly, that we need someone who knows what they're doing, with a bit of experience behind them. So,
yeah, absolutely. We need an experienced manager to come in. The chat's amazing. Still around 300 people watching this live. So thank you all for tuning in. The numbers are just phenomenal at the moment. There's such an interest in Saints. And and I don't know how you guys feel. To get the Saints news and the Saints perspective now, in mainstream media you cannot get. Sky Sports News just not really covered this story. Championship you've forgotten about as a club. I just think, Ellie, you'll be on social media loads. You tell me you're on TikTok. Everybody is coming to channels like the Football Martin channel, the Total Saints podcast, to get their Saints news now, because it's just not anywhere to get a real perspective on it. And we've done that tonight without any shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And it comes from, then it comes from the fans as well, doesn't it? It comes from, you're obviously a huge Saints fan, and your channel's coming from you, and you get that perspective from Total Saints podcast and the few others that there are as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's great to see. You mentioned Adam and Joe. They do a great job, don't they, as well, with the commentaries and that podcast they do. So that we generate. I think there was someone who mentioned earlier, Martin, about the family feel of the club and whether that's gone. And I think that's the one thing that new media channels like yours and TSP and this type of channel can really do, is bring out, because you are a Saints fan, and whenever you talk about it, whenever you do your sort of instant reactions, they're absolutely full of emotion and disappointment, ecstasy, and all of this stuff. You sort of ride the roller coaster, don't you? You're not a sort of journalist who's just sort of submitting a story and doing the job. You're a fan, and I think you actually, and this channel and the others that we're lucky enough to have, can bring back that family feel if indeed it has gone.
Yeah, that family feel has gone a little bit, Ellie, and they need to bring it back quickly. How does it happen? How do you get that family feel back? Because the club have done so much good off the field. Now they take a lot of criticism for the on-field. So the decision makers for doing what they've done off the field, they've done well, because you've got an amazing fan zone. The actual match day experience is better now than it's ever been in terms of outside. I love the pub. Level 1's brilliant. There's all of this amazing feeling around the grounds, but you need to get it right on the pitch now.
Yeah, and I think that's the only thing that there's left for them to do. I haven't actually been to level 1 yet, but we're gonna go before the end of the year, I think, Dad, aren't we? And but yeah, I mean, the Dell's lovely. The fan zone outside the ground is fantastic. They're doing good things, but I think the only way to bring that sort of connection back between the fans and what happens on in the field is to start winning some games. And I know that sounds really silly, but you've got to start getting some results.
The toxicity that you get when times are like they are now is you wouldn't want your 5 or 6 year old in amongst, well, I mean, there are plenty of them, but you wouldn't want your 5 and 6 year old necessarily hearing all that vitriol and stuff, would you? So I think when people maybe talk about losing the family element, that's maybe what they're talking about, is they don't, I've really loved bringing my kids to these games over the years. It's been great for them to grow up as Saints fans. They've had, at one point Ellie had, I think, a season in League One followed by a promotion, 8th, 7th, 6th, 8th.
Yeah, and amazing.
Ellie was really shocked when we got relegated. She didn't even know that was a thing. So I think when you are successful, that's what brings all that stuff back, isn't it? And so I think, like you say, if they can get a manager in who can just do whatever that tweak is needed, or that bit of extra confidence to get Archer or whoever it is scoring, a couple of goals a game will be enough to win a lot of these games. So that I think is a big part of the difference. So and then everyone will be much happier, won't they?
There's a good this has come up a couple of times today. Adam Blackmore even tweeted this one, Ellie, so we should touch upon it. I think it will happen. I've already gone out on a TikTok and already said I think it will happen. James Ward-Prowse to return in January on loan. I did hear it today. Do you take him, wouldn't you? Or is the midfield too loaded?
I mean, we have got a lot of midfield players, but that's a player to me that I would take. But I think my dad's going to have a different opinion on this, aren't you?
At the start of the season, I probably would have said it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I blow hot and cold on Prowse. I think his last couple of seasons were disappointing for us, and I did feel disappointed with him. And he was playing in a side that hadn't been refreshed very much, and so I'm not saying it's all his fault or whatever, but I think sometimes you move on. But it'd be interesting to have Prowse and Romeo back in midfield and see how that did in the Championship. But surely Prowse should be in the Premier League, shouldn't he?
But then it's like, I think as well, if you bring Prowsey back, and we've got Prowsey and Romeu, and we're just adding to the squad, and we got too many. I mean, we've got Flynn Downs, then we've got Shea Charles, we've got Casper Yanda. I mean, who is gonna? That feels like players that should be. I mean, Shea Charles and Flynn Downs, to me, feel like they should be starting every game. And I know that hasn't happened for Flynn Downs this season, but based on his performance 2 years ago when we went up, I mean, he was fantastic that season. So it
best players, wasn't he?
like he should be, yeah. But I mean, if you're bringing then these players in, who then plays? I don't know. But Prowsey's not scored a free kick, has he, since? And I think isn't he one off Beckham's record? So is he going to come back and?
One to match it,
the thing the debate Ellie and I have often had about Prowsey is I think Ryan Manning takes a better corner than Prowsey ever did. So
it's brilliant.
So Ryan Manning takes great corners, and obviously he's scored a couple of free kicks this season as well. So it'll definitely be interesting if he does come back to see who takes the set pieces.
Good point. It'll be interesting to see. You just never know, dear. I still think the number one outright priority, if I was going to go and do any bit of business in January, the first thing I do is go find a striker. If I'm Johannes Spors, he needs to go and get a striker, because if he is the man that recruited Damien Downs and solely responsible for it, he needs to have a long, hard look at himself, because I think he got it badly wrong, Ellie. I think he got it badly wrong with Damien Downs. It wasn't for the here and the now. And we needed someone for the here. I know we keep coming back to it, and I keep going on about it. I'm like a broken record about it. But it's cost us on epic proportions. I mean, and a manager's job.
I can't believe it feels like we've gone, and I don't know really how long it is, but it feels like we've gone a really long time now without having, that main striker. I mean, we've signed Damien Downs, and I don't know who, if they signed Damien Downs with the thinking, did they sign him with the thinking he was going to be playing this season? Because that's certainly not going to happen. But then if they didn't think that, they were relying on Ross Stewart to do that job, and that I mean, that's so risky, wasn't it? The way his injury record is, and it's now proved us again. So I can't quite work out what the thinking was with that whole thing. And as you said, Cam Archer obviously hasn't ever really taken off in a Saints shirt, and I think we've been missing that player since since Shea Adams left, haven't we?
The one thing Damien Downs is he hasn't looked like a player yet. He definitely hasn't. I'm not trying to get about to claim he is, but Pochettino plays in for America, or he's in the squad for the American team that's hosting the World Cup at the end of this season. So there's a manager there who we know has been a Southampton manager before, has been a respected Premier League manager, and who hasn't sort of cast him aside. So maybe he's got something and we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, like I just it beggars belief for me. It really does.
7 million.
Really does. And I don't know if we've got any room to do. We brought the free agent in Oreo. I don't know if there's any room to do one more, because I just still would have thought it would have made a bit of sense. Like Bamford's without a club. I know I'm going to get absolutely shot to pieces for saying this, or Antonio. There are a couple of strikers out there probably looking to just try and prove themselves again, to get themselves back in the game. There would have been a far better option than Downs at this moment in time.
Ollie McBurney start the season.
Yeah, he's done brilliant, hasn't he?
That feels to me. I mean, Ollie McBurney feels like the type of player that we need at this point. That will literally just score goals. They can throw all these crosses. Tom Fellows and Ryan Manning, they can throw all these crosses into the box, and there's someone.
He will go where it hurts. He'll go where it hurts, won't he? Yeah. Yeah.
And we just don't have that. And I'd love, I said this when he came on the other day. I'd love Damien Downs to prove me wrong, and start playing well. But it just does not look like it's going to happen, does it?
No, it doesn't feel like it to me. I don't feel like he's going to. I just think he struggled at League One standard. Personally, I really do. It's really interesting listening to it, seeing all the comments coming. There's even more people in this live now. There's around 315, 320 people watching this live. So thank you all very much. And the comments, I can't keep up with the comments on the right hand side of my screen. I don't know if you guys can see them, but I'll keep reading out and popping a few on the screen as we go. We're kind of entering like the last sort of 10 minutes or so of this evening's live. It's been absolutely brilliant. The two unbelievable guests here. I'm very, very fortunate to have met some amazing people since I've been doing this content, and to be able to bring them on the channel and just speak as Saints fans and just chat like this, it's absolutely phenomenal. So you two have been brilliant. You will be back ASAP, by the way, because everybody is loving you guys in the live. There's some nice comments dropping in. I'll pop this one up. Simon, thank you for the super chat. Very kind of you. The super chat, everything that is brought in will always go back into the channel. Genuine, thank you, Mike, for the continued content. It's really welcome. So yeah, thank you very much. And welcome to Ellie and Charlie too. And I did say last night, Ellie, you will be joining us a lot more on the channel. Ellie's going to present some of the content for me. She's got loads of ideas, and I think she's so good on camera, Charlie. I want to give her that opportunity to come and do bits on the channel, because I think she is she's like the future of broadcast as well, and there's a fantastic opportunity for her.
Absolutely agree. She knows her stuff, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. It's good, and I think it's nice to have a balance of people as well, and like age groups as well. You know, Ellie's a lot younger than me, and I think she sees social media content and football content in a different way as well. So I think it's a nice balance, Charlie. What we have here right now. Before we wrap things, Charlie, your first memory of watching Saints. I should ask you this really. I probably asked it to you before, but there's a good 300 people in the live watching this. Your first memory of watching Saints?
Well, I think when we talked a couple of years ago on the channel, you asked me this, and I think it might have even been the same game as your first game, which was a 0-0 draw against Everton. And I think Neville Southall.
Neville Southall.
Might have been John Burridge, might have been Burridge, or I don't know who it was, but yeah, that was my first game. Was a 0-0 draw. I do know the date. I just can't remember when it was. Probably 1988 or something like that. But but I just got invited along by a mate of mine who's still my best mate now, and he used to go with a friend of his who'd broken his leg, and said, "Oh, will you come along with me?" Didn't want to go on his own, and I did. I went along and saw a 0-0 draw, and still came back for more. And I was just like hooked by the atmosphere and the sort of anticipation. And we had players like Rodney Wallace and Matt Letizia, and all those young players, Paul Rideout, Jason Dodd, all these guys playing for us at that time, which was really, really exciting. And Chris Nichols, the manager, and we had some decent games along that time, although we were often battling relegation. It was fun times.
Yeah, and Eddie, yours is like you weren't around to see the Dow, were you? You didn't see the Dow.
No, I think mine, as you said earlier, I had a fantastic first, few years watching Saints. I mean, my first game was we were played Stockport, and it was the year before we went up from League One, and then after that, I saw 2 promotions, 8th, 7th, 6th Europa League football, a final at Wembley, a FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. I mean, so I think I was very lucky with my first. And you've seen some
brilliant managers as well. Like if you think about the managers that you've had up until Sport Republic started choosing managers, you had some good managers. Well, when you look at your time as a Southampton fan, Ellie, and you look at the managers that we've had, if there's anyone that stands out to you now, you think if I could go and get him back now and have him as our manager, who would it be and why?
I think just if I had to pick one, I think, oh God, I don't want to forget anyone, but I think probably Ronald Koeman, if I could bring one of them back. Yeah. I have this fantastic memory of this game under Ronald Koeman, and I always remember it. We were 2-0 down to Liverpool at half time, and we ended up winning 3-2. I think
what game that was.
Scored a couple. Graziano Pella scored one. Ronald Koeman sort of ran down the line. I think he just had hip surgery or something a few weeks before, but it was just unbelievable. And
didn't he have his leg in a boot? Didn't he have his leg in a boot and he ran down the touchline?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that was a fantastic game. But there's been so many good managers, but I think he'd probably have to be the one. But Mauricio Pochettino as well. It's fantastic managers in there.
Yeah, I loved Maurizio. I did enjoy it. It's been a real mixed bag, and the next appointment is so big for this football club. It is so big. Kind of finishing up the show and coming to an end of things, as we continue throughout the week, do you there won't be an appointment this week, will there? Do you think, Ellie? Gut feeling?
I don't think so. And I think if we're seriously, trying to go after Frank Lampard, then certainly not. But I mean, maybe it would be probably good to have someone in before Saturday, but I wouldn't have thought so. It feels like it will probably come next week, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think it'll come next week. Charlie, who's it going to be? Who's the next Southampton manager going to be? I bet you're right on the spot there, haven't I?
Well, it's difficult to say. I would, if you put me on the spot, Martin, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if it's Gary O'Neill. Not because I want Gary O'Neill necessarily, but I just think he's available. He's just turned down the Wolves job. He lives fairly locally. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if that was who it was. I don't think we'll get Frank Lampard. That'd be a massive coup and a massive surprise if he left the team on 28 points at the top of the championship to come
at the top,
but virtually in the relegation zone, or 3 points off the relegation zone. So that would be my guess. But it wouldn't be a surprise either, would it, if it was someone completely that we never heard of before, or sort of left field. So Spurs has worked with a lot of people. I can't remember who they said, but someone earlier mentioned a name. It's just gone out of my head, but who Johannes Spurs had appointed before. Patrick Vieira.
Patrick Vieira.
So that's got to be, anyone that Spurs has worked with before has got to be in consideration. That's just obvious. So perhaps that would be an interesting one. Managed New York City, being part of the Man City, the City Football Group. Managed Crystal Palace, obviously in the Premier League. So not inexperienced. So you never know.
Yeah, no, it will be really, really interesting. Really, really interesting, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you both, Ellie. Thank you. It's been great to have you on.
Having us
Charlie.
on.
Thank you, my friend. It's been absolutely tremendous. And to everybody that's tuned in this evening, thank you very much for joining us on the Football Martin channel. Whether you are watching on YouTube live, whether you're watching on catch up, or you're listening on download, make sure you subscribe to the channel, get involved in the comments as well, and stay tuned for the next Football Martin content.